So one of our goals this year, an EO Global Initiative, is the idea that we learn in 3 ways as EO members. We learn with experts, we learn peer-to-peer, we have a lot of knowledge in our organization, and we also learn through experiences. So today we're going to kind of hit 2 of those. We're going to hit with an expert on some business practices and also a peer. So I want to introduce Dr. Moak, EO Detroit member, and he's going to share information about how his entrepreneurial journey has gone, which is fascinating. He's also brought some materials for us, some books and pamphlets that he'll be speaking on today, so please make sure you grab one on your way out. And with no further ado, Dr. Moak, thank you.
So I'm going to tell you kind of a history of our business, how we got started and how we plan to save $10 billion a year in healthcare waste by 2025. So I was working in the hospital in the ER, and I never had an entrepreneurial background. I was an ER doctor, and we were independent, and I never had a business, didn't have any employees. I was working on my own, and my employees were really kind of like the nurses, but they're actually employees of the hospital. So I didn't understand that, never had educated in it. And in medicine, they don't really teach us about business, but even though a lot of doctors might wind up in business on their own. In fact, when we do our educational stuff, like what we call CME, continuing medical education, if there's a business section of it, it's excluded from credits. We can't even claim it. So it's sort of like, it's considered distasteful, because back in the 20s and 30s, they didn't want doctors being business people because they might figure out how to rob, harmless people. But now we realize that the government's not going to save healthcare, but entrepreneurial companies will. So we started in 2004, and a friend came with the idea of doing a laser hair removal clinic in a medical spa. And there wasn't really any in Michigan to speak of. It was just kind of starting, and there was this nurse from California who knew about it. So we made Allure Medical Spa. And this is how old our marketing was. We picked Allure because we wanted the letter A for the homework. And show up there. So we started a clinic, and we had a nurse, and we did some laser hair removal, and I wasn't really much involved with it. And then in 2004, I started seeing that there was a lot of other opportunities. I was going to meetings and learning there was other stuff that people wanted to have done that were medical, but insurance wouldn't cover. So we started expanding our offerings. We did some injection that would reduce some fat. Now that's been FDA approved years later. I started doing treating people with varicose veins with something called foam sclerotherapy, which wasn't really much available, wasn't covered by insurance. And we did a lot of other things. And really between 2004 and 2007, we went from a business startup with 2 rooms, timeshare, to $10 million business, which is me as the only doctor. And it was wildly profitable. And I was able to use my skills in the hospital of being able to triage and work very efficiently and fast of making a successful cosmetic business. And then about that time, one of the service lines he had was this varicose veins, and insurance recognized that there was some new technologies that would save surgeries. So the surgical procedure where people would do a stripping and they would take the veins out, and they approved these devices that were like lasers more or less that would go in and burn the vein, and it would treat the varicose vein, and it was considered medically necessary. The patient had sick legs and swelling or something like that. So we started taking insurance at that time, and we kind of grew it, and the business was doing well, and I decided, well, I got to start now scaling the business up a little bit. I didn't know how to, so I hired people. And I went from me, doing $10 million a year with a handful of people to adding more doctors or one more doctor, more services, some mid-level providers. What I was seeing was that our gross income was going up, but our profits were going down. Not a lot, but they were going down. So I thought, okay, I got it. I got to get into another area. So we looked around. I wanted to be as far away as possible so I wouldn't cannibalize my existing business. So I opened an office in Livonia. And in 2011, and we opened the office in Livonia, and it was doing okay, but we weren't getting the same results. And our Shelby office was still doing pretty well. It was very successful. And the Livonia offices, it was like as many people wanted to go there as in Shelby, but they weren't really generating sales. And again, I had no idea how to run a business. I didn't know about metrics or KPIs, so I just assumed I would hire a manager and they would tell me what's wrong and fix it. So the managers would go and look at it and say, you don't understand, there's any money out here, and there's different people, and you just picked the wrong area. I let that go for a while, and we're seeing growth kind of stagnate, and profit margins not where they were at before. So my solution, I got to do this. In 2015, I thought I'm going to do this 3 more times. Open 3 more offices and hope that I can, hit a home run again. So we opened in Clarkston and Southgate and Warren offices, and then we lost money. We actually grew by $8 million and lost about $500,000. I had no idea what was happening. So my solution was just to do more surgeries. I was the top breast surgeon in North America, and I was really efficient. So I was doing more surgery, wasn't fixing it. And then I realized that the things I had done that got us wildly successful was, in fact, I was very good at either taking innovations and applying them to healthcare or inventing stuff. So along this lines, which will continue the story and go from here on out, going forward, is that there was a patient that came to me back in '05 that had varicose veins, but he also had a hole in his leg called a venous ulcer. And he had had surgeries, and he was going to get potentially his leg amputated. And his doctor sent him to see if I could treat him with our varicose vein stuff. And he didn't really have any varicose veins, they were all stripped. But he had this venous stasis ulcer. And at the time, the management is that you would put him into wound care, and they stay in there the rest of their life. The cost is $24,000 a year until they die. That's the cost. This guy was in a wheelchair, in and out of the hospital, and he had these ulcers. It was a surgical procedure called a SEPS procedure, but it's like a high-risk surgery, and they couldn't do it on somebody with a sick leg. So I had invented laser liposuction. I was the first guy to do that in North America, and I had done that with my vein laser, and I was screwing around with that, see what could happen. And I did the first laser liposuction, and we got that FDA approved. So then I treated the cause of his ulcer, which wasn't varicose veins or different veins, with this laser. And he, agreed, your leg's gonna get amputated, let me give this a crack. And if I screwed up, he'd probably forgive me, right? So we treated his leg, and then it took me about 8 months ago. I was going really slow, he had multiple disease, but we healed his leg up. So then I treated 400 consecutive patients like that, and I wrote an FDA paper. We got it approved, and now insurance covers that. So that's the backstory. That was kind of innovation, and we were kind of always doing that. Well, when I figured out that I had failed in business because I didn't innovate it, I was just doing surgery all the time and trying to run the business on the weekends, I realized I got to learn business. Part of that time, I was reading medical journals and medical books, and I was trying to come up with ways to do, I did the first breast augmentation, totally awake, not even with Tylenol. I did it live in front of 10,000 people on one of these Facebook Lives. It was the first one. I gave her a safe word in case you're not heard, but it went fine. We did several cases after that. I did all these other things, but I never really looked at innovating our business model, because I thought that all you had to do is do more surgery, and that's what happened before. When I started business off, I could do a bunch of surgery, a bunch of stuff, and make a lot of money, and then I should be able to hire people, and the same thing happens. But I had no idea about leadership or business principles. So I started, I made a commitment to read 2 business books a week, which I still do, and really 2016. And the first thing I learned was how to drive sales. So I drove sales a lot, but we still couldn't get profitable. I couldn't figure it out until I figured out that I am 100% visionary and 0 processor. I don't understand what a process is or a system is. In fact, people that like process, I don't like talking to them. It just irritates me. So we tested everybody in our company, and we found the people that had process ability, people that were operators, people that were visionaries. And I started having the people that were understanding the process to look at our foundational principles that made us successful, things we created over time, things that happen at some offices that are wildly successful, and other offices that weren't so successful. Let's figure out what it is. And the first thing we did is I looked at our first metric. I used a basic number that I call dollars per new patient, new customer, or whatever. So let's say you have 100 customers in a year, how much dollars you can bring in, and that tells you how you're doing on the 3 ways to grow a business. So there's only 3 ways to grow a business. It doesn't matter what it is, if it's healthcare or selling stuff. Either increase your number of new customers, increase the size of sale, or repeat business. And there's nothing else. That's it. There's not any subsets of that. So we just looked at dollars per new patient. Well, what I found was that our office that I worked at, we were at $4,500, and the other offices were plus or minus $1,000 by $100, $900 to $1,100. And it was really kind of an eye-opener, because my thought was I just had to drive more patients there, more customers there, but they weren't treating them. So why is this? Well, we didn't really have a reproducible sales process. We didn't have a reproducible operations process, because by nature I knew how to close the sale, do the surgery, get satisfaction, get them back in. But a success without a process is not repeatable. On the other hand, a process without success is worthless. So sometimes you can take processes too far, and that's called a bureaucracy, but we had none. And I would have consultants come out and look at our business, they go, you seem to hate processes. Like, I don't want any processes because that's telling me what to do, and I really need to free think. But really, it's not everybody's instinct to free think. So I realized that that's where we were failing. So we started looking at just our conversion rate. When people come in for stuff, do we get them into production or not? We were really kind of heavily into the ugly legs. We talked about the guy with the ulcer. We were treating a lot of that stuff, treating varicose veins and swelling. We were doing a lot of breast surgery and a lot of other stuff. And the conversion rate at Shelby was 60%. Sometimes people want it done, it's too expensive, and sometimes they just don't get it done or not a candidate. And the other office is about 20%. Okay, hence the failure in the business that I almost drove the business into the ground. So we developed a process, we actually used a process called 4 disciplines of execution. And that was really one of the big processes we put in our company. And we decided, okay, let's try to get everybody to 65%. And let's do it in 3 months. So how are we gonna do that? We picked lagging measure of we're gonna get everybody into production, 65% of people production across all offices. And we're gonna pick lead measures, which might be getting them into their diagnostic testing, scheduling for it. There's different things we do. We trained our staff on how to run meetings and how to do meeting rhythm. And in about 3 to 4 months, we had everybody at 65%. So immediately, cash flow is positive. Office was wildly successful again. And I needed to figure out what this crazy process thing is a little bit more. So I started looking at other processes in our business, and we had none unless they were something I never touched. So for example, billing, I don't know how billing works, and they got a process, and they were able to run the billing department. HR had a process, our IT had a process, but anything I touched, I was resisting processes. My nature wanted the personality of the company to be just like me, but that's not scalable, okay? So I could be an artist type person, do whatever it is, like a lot of people who are, an artist would be like your accountants, lawyers, welders, but then I couldn't do that in a lot of business. I started exiting out of surgery a little bit, started cutting back and running the business, because before I wasn't doing it. We put a few operating systems in our business. We went from really having kind of a barrage of useless meetings to having a very defined meeting rhythm. We followed, people have read probably the Attraction book with EOS or Gazelle scaling up. We use something similar to Gazelle scaling up, and every day we have a huddle, everybody has a huddle. And there's 3 things we discuss. Number 1 is, what's up for the day? What are the key metrics, and what's in the way? And that's it. Standing up 15 minutes. Ritz-Carlton does it. Marriott does it. Everybody does it. There's not a company in Silicon Valley that doesn't have a clean huddle. So we started our daily huddle. We started our weekly rhythm meetings with our leading, lagging measures and our status, and then we started doing quarterly offsite with everybody so I can update them on where I'm taking the company. And we got it wildly successful again, very profitable. We grew the business a lot, and then we were able to make every location successful. But in 2017, in June, I read a PR Newswire release, and it said there was 683,000 endovenous ablations. This is this procedure we do to treat the veins, although we tend to treat more sick legs than that. There was 683,000, and we had done 1% of all of them in the country. Like, this doesn't make any sense. We're only in Detroit. So then I got a hold of the manufacturer, the VP of the manufacturing company, and talked to him about what was going on in the industry. And they said, other than you guys, nobody's treating these really ugly legs. They're just treating varicose veins. But the device that I helped develop, along with other people, that treats the ulcers, nobody's really using them. And we looked into the wound care costs in Detroit, and we had about the lowest in the country because we changed the behavior of doctors in this area. If your patient's got a hole in their leg, send them to a vascular specialist, not to a wound care center. So I really started focusing on this wound care thing, and I wrote a book on it, so it's not here. But we spent $32 billion in 2014 managing chronic wounds. Of that, about 60% of them are these venous stasis ulcers that are curable. We spend $24,000 a year on people that have these wounds, with technology invented in 1892. Dr. Paul Ernst Huna brought Uniboot, and that's a staple of treating these wounds. And what happens in healthcare is we're like any other business. We have a scarcity mindset instead of an abundance mindset, and they're afraid of curing disease because what are you going to do then? Hospitals focus on recurring revenue. Doctors focus on recurring revenue. We know how to cure certain diseases, and there's no vast conspiracies. All these little scarcity mindsets are keeping us from curing disease because we know how to cure a lot of things, but there's more money in disease management, more money in preserving disease. There's very few diseases that are common that are not preventable. 2011 Affordable Health Care Act, also known as Obamacare, they mandated that insurance company had to pay for a few preventative things like a colonoscopy and mammogram. Otherwise, insurance companies are like, why would we want to pick up breast cancer early? Chances are they're going to get it on Medicare anyways, but it's really bad, right? So they don't want to pay for it. And if you have an actuary, it would tell you, do not look for preventable disease. Good chance they'll die before then, or they'll go on Medicare, or they'll change jobs, you have to pay for it. So prevention is cheaper and it saves money. So anyways, we decided, I wrote a vivid vision in 2017 in October. We were only in Detroit, we had 5 offices, that we were gonna save $10 billion a year. And how we're gonna do it. We're gonna expand our business. We're gonna find practices in other areas and either buy them or teach them how to do it. And we're gonna use our systems that we built to create abundance. And we're gonna pay our staff 50% more than their peers, work 20% less hours, and have triple our industry's profit margin. So we set these very specifically. It would be November 2020, and we've been steadily working towards that goal. So then I realized I have to expand, and I don't know how to do it. And I'm a visionary, not a processor, so I had to use some process people with my visionary ability. So the first thing we did is we pulled the claims data, that's the billing data for every doctor in North America. And we platted them on a map, and we had a data scientist make a map that I could see, so it's a visual map. And we put how many cases of the old-fashioned thing invented in 1890 are being billed out, and how many of the new things are being billed out. We made a regional density, and we also took a data from called the Bond superficial venous reflex data. But it's basically, we can tell by the population how many people likely have this disease. So we had 3 things. We had how many people had the disease, how many times were they cutting off the wounds and putting dressings on them, and how many times were they curing them. And we ranked every metropolitan statistical area from 1 to 471. And some don't need us. They're already, like Houston doesn't need us. So we won't go there. So we started at the bottom of the list in Greenville, South Carolina. And there was a doctor there doing this, but he had a very low volume. Went and visited with them. He goes, you have no idea how hard it is. The hospitals are competing with me. Insurance isn't paying money. My employees won't listen to me. I can't kick the dog enough to get this thing going. So we acquired his practice in February of last year. And we put in our systems from step 1 to step 7. There's 7 switches. And we grew it from $80,000 a month, which is a typical, very healthy surgical practice, to about $600,000 a month in 3 months. No marketing. And then I realized the abundance of what we can create is through training people on how to run a business and how to create value by not having friction. And in this book in here, I call it the abundance machine, because that's what it creates, is abundance. If we're going to save $10 billion a year, that money is going to be in, potentially employers' hands and employees' hands, out of the government costs. We can reduce $10 billion a year. And after we get to $10 billion, we just go for $100 billion. I have a plan for that. So the first thing we did is I tried to figure out what were the steps that were causing us to be failure before at our other offices that we fixed. And there was 7 I identified for this particular sales cycle, let's say. Number 1 is persuasion. Persuasion. I use persuasion after Robert Cialdini. So persuasion is what causes the customer to call us or the doctor to refer to us. Is it consistently, are we getting messages out there, are we educating the public? Because keep in mind, if we've been doing this thing since 1892 and insurance pays for it, makes a lot of money, $24,000 a year, we gotta do a lot of convincing to give that up, and they don't want to give it up. So we really focus on how do we persuade people, how do we get in the doctor's ear, how do we train them. I wrote some books on it so we can have people train the doctors. We made it very clear. The next step is, we call it, we're videotaping this, don't let anybody see this, okay? Answer that phone. That's the number 2 switch, so answer the effing phone. So we had already created a really good way to get customers on the phone. And when we look at practices that we're gonna buy, we do a test, we do mystery calls, we do 5 of them, and we rate them on a scale of 1 to 10, and we have a 10-star rating system that we use internally to train our staff on a call. Now typically, if a doctor gets 10 calls for the service, only 2 patients book the appointment. And really, it's in everybody's business, unless you've trained your staff how to answer the phone and how to close. In the case we see, is usually the person on the phone is trying to do the diagnosis over the phone rather than sell the appointment. So he's talking, and never ask for the sale. So we created a system where our staff can close 80% of the cases, and versus 20. So that obviously creates abundance. The next step is, for us, it's getting their diagnostic test done. So we're scaling right now out of the state of Michigan only this circulation thing. We're gonna bring other things later on. But we do an ultrasound. And when the ultrasound gets done, it gives us like a plan what to do. After we do the diagnostic, we get them into production, and they need to get a procedure done. They start the procedure, usually they're getting about 4 procedures done, so they finish. There's a lot of reasons they can stop because maybe it hurts or something, they call and we answer the effing phone, so they cancel or they don't show up, or maybe they have a question about their $10 copay and they cancel, procedure. So finish. There's actually one step right here, it's to show. In healthcare, there's a no-show rate of about 28%. We got it down below 10. And if they finish, do they refer or review to start the cycle over again? So when we created the abundance machine, we measure every one of those things very specifically. We use a lot of business intelligence. We use Power BI, or business intelligence, and we wrote proprietary software that queues the data every single minute, so we know how all these steps are doing. And we trained our staff how to do that. In this system, when we put it in place, we were able to create abundance in the practice we bought in 2017. The other thing gave us confidence that we can be successful moving out of state from a standpoint of being profitable is we got to have cash flow. When we buy a new business, if we grew it to 500%, you can imagine we had to put a lot of people into it ahead of cash flow. So I told you back 16 we had lost money, even though we grew $8 million. So in 2017, when I was fixing the other processes, I realized I didn't really have a process for expenses, and I didn't really understand it. A lot of accountants are expense side, but it's like a silo where they're not communicating with the people that are wasting the money. In this case, you might have an office that's, they drop a $700 catheter, we can turn it back to manufacturer, but it's easy to throw it away. So I tried to create open book accounting. It was kind of hard. We did pull it off somewhat. It's not perfect yet. But we had a bunch of bonuses, and maybe we'd be paying bonus on something we're losing money on because we were basing it based on sales. And anybody that understands business is that you can grow a business and not have any money. So we ripped the Band-Aid off of all the production-based income. Our doctors would get a percentage of what they earned. We took that away. We get commission on something. We took that away. And we basically decided we're just going to split the profits up. I want to hit this triple industry profit margin. And every time we get a little bit over that, we split it up. So we made a system where, based on your wages, you get a percentage of your wage on the week that we hit the profit targets. And there's 3 tiers. And we measure it every week, and we know our profit's extremely precise. But what happened is when we started talking about expenses and costs, because we have the sales side, which we always thought about, we got the accountants talking about the expense side, we trained our staff what waste was. They didn't even knew it. They didn't know how to address it. If you look me up on the Huffington Post article, Vern Harnish wrote it. Anybody know Vern Harnish? Sorry, he wrote an article on this, but in 3 months, my staff reduced our expenses by $300,000 a month. Okay, because I taught them what waste was, and we showed them the books, and we made tied their income to it. So instantly they're hitting their bonus. I read Jack Stack's book on a great game of business. It's really complex and it takes a long time, it's a long cycle. There's another book called Ownership Thinking. So they help frame my thought process out of. One thing I observed is that if you want to motivate somebody, there's 3 features I look at to motivate. First off, is the reward, or is the outcome positive or negative? Positive works better than negative. Is it certain or uncertain? Certain works better than uncertain. And is it immediate or remote? Immediate works better. So if I tell somebody, quit smoking or you may get lung cancer 20 years from now, they're not going to quit smoking. But if somebody says to the same person, quit smoking and I will kiss you now, I'll be as positive and immediate, certain. So by having the Jack Stack model where you hold something back for a year and you pay quarterly, it's almost like getting a Christmas goose. They don't recognize the actions to the outcome. In fact, Zingerman does a lot of training on the great game of business, but the dirty secret is that their primary store has never hit the target. They've never paid it out. So they work on it, but they're not paying the bonus. So I've seen a lot of these businesses implement it as a means to motivate the staff, but it's really got to happen. It's got to happen soon. So our staff knows every week. They know by the day. We wrote an artificial intelligence program that'll predict our sales in the future. So we know this week we're gonna hit tier 2, not tier 3. We know we're $20,000 short of tier 3. They're gonna figure out where that money comes from. My staff will. And then when the week goes by, we'll know if we hit it. I mean, because we run an accrual-based accounting system, we know if we were profitable and how much we were. We know it by the week. So we got the cash flow solved. Then we started buying practices. In 2017, we wrote the vision. In October, we had 5 locations in Detroit. And today we have 25 in 8 states. We've been able to rapidly grow by using this model over and over again. There were hiccups along the way, things that I didn't understand, like billing. We kind of destroyed our billing departments. We outsourced that. We got a PEO to handle our PEO is where you outsource your employees, or HR, so we're doing that. And we're outsourcing everything that is not radical customer experience in the office. So we're either offshoring it, outsourcing it, or automating it, or eliminating it. So our goal at this point is to change the behavior of communities like we have in Detroit, because in Detroit we've created competition for ourselves, which is good, because now there's more people talking about the same thing. We train residents all the time, get them in our practice. We train doctors that when they see these ugly legs or swollen or red or going into the hospital, to send them to us. I met with I'm trying to figure out how to penetrate deeper and deeper, but I went to a company, they're in Detroit, and they have a home health care exclusively for these wounds. And there's 5 doctors. And I met with them about, I'm gonna show you guys how to cure these, and then you'll be able to stop this. Well, here's what happens. The patient goes in their doctor and they got swollen legs, and they're red and discolored. So they get sent to the cardiologist, see if they have heart failure, swelling, heart failure, it's negative. So they get sent to the kidney doctor, see if they have kidney failure, negative. Then they get sent to the gastroenterology doctor, see if they have liver failure, negative. So they're diagnosed with lymphedema, put in stocks until they get the ulcer. Once you get the ulcer, they get sent to the hospital. Go to the hospital, there's a hole in their leg, and a hospitalist sees them, that's like the internist, and they consult surgery, who cuts the wound off. And they put them in something called Uneboot, invented in 1892 by Dr. Paul Ernst in Germany. And they sent them home with a prescription for bed rest, even though they may be working at Ford, for 3 months, and Uniboots. And they send them to the home health care. Home health care gets involved with them, it takes them about 7 months to cure the wound, and they don't see them again for another year. 80% of them occur in 1 year. And then their cycle repeats itself. And that's where all this waste comes from. And I talked to them about, let's just cure it, and they more or less threw me out. Why would we want to destroy our business model? Well, there's more abundance in curing stuff. There's more abundance in curing stuff, but the healthcare model was designed around disease management, disease maintenance. And we look at disease, like we can pick up heart attacks 10 years in advance. There's a test that called a carotid intimomedial thickness, and we can scan your carotid artery, and we can predict your risk of a heart attack in the next 10 years. So there's class 1 means your risk is average 9% if you're over 40. Class 2 is a little bit worse, it might be 15%, and class C is 35%. And if you had a class 3, you'd want to know about it now, is you're going to think twice about how you're eating, you might get more aggressive on your lipids. Cholesterol is useless, but insurance doesn't cover it because they don't cover for preventive health unless they're mandated to by Congress. Just like your house insurance doesn't cover a battery for your smoke detector. They only pay when disease kicks in, and there's been a mindset of how do we shift this around? Well, the whole model was designed to take care of disease, not health. And in the Affordable Health Care Act, they made something called the 85-15 rule. And this is a law for insurance companies, such as Blue Cross, that they got to spend 85 cents on every dollar on underwriting. If they don't, they had to refund last year $2 billion in Michigan to members that basically overpaid because they didn't spend 85% of everything they collected. The intention was to make the insurance companies not be greedy, but what happened is the insurance companies have no motivation to lower healthcare costs. None. Because they lower healthcare costs, their 15% is of a smaller number. So I'm going around the country and looking for innovative doctors, because that's my greatest strength, which becomes our company's biggest weakness, as I'm no longer able to do that. There's a doctor in Minnesota, he's a cardiologist, and he observed that he wants to prevent heart disease, but he's only paid for heart attacks. That's it. So he talked to the insurance company and he was explaining why they don't want to do this. So he went to the pipe trades, and it's a union, and said, look, I can pick up heart disease in your guys before they retire and have a heart attack 10 years from now. And these are affluent union jobs that they're going to go and retire at a younger age, and they want to spend time with their kids, but a heart attack comes and we can't prevent it. So they asked him to screen all their members, and he screens them for intimal thickness, and if they're a class 2 or 3, he brings them to his office, does a stress test, manages their lipids, try to get them to quit smoking. And it's interesting, if you show somebody that you actually have atherosclerosis, you have a plaque in your carotid artery, the smoking stops. It stops when you get cancer, and it stops when you have atherosclerosis, but it doesn't stop beforehand. Now, some people still resist that; they'll still smoke, or the eating stops, or the change in the diet. We can do genetic testing and see what kind of foods you should eat. But insurance doesn't cover anything. But he went right to the pipe trades and got paid. Now every union in Minnesota wants him to do this, but he couldn't scale, so he called us to take his business. So he gave us his business, and we're scaling that up. And that's like, those are the kind of opportunities in the world where we can save healthcare costs by thinking differently. A big company like Ford, they're self-insured, even though they run it through HAP, or GM's running through Blue Cross. Maybe we change the model from going through the health insurance company to the employers. They're going to pay for health insurance anyways and lower the healthcare costs of their members. So our mission now is to save $10 billion a year, mostly on the wound care. We're on track. We're actually a little ahead of schedule. We're opening another 4 offices this month. We started kind of slow in February of last year, and then did a few more acquisitions. Now we're kind of on a tear. We're doing open about 1 every week or 2, and we will do this with no outside investment, no debt. We do have a little owner's debt. Sometimes we have the doctors, basically finance the practice, but we're doing it in wages, so I don't have goodwill. It's toxic to anybody here in accounting. Yeah, don't sell goodwill, right? I don't buy goodwill. It's nice. I'm 55 and I have to depreciate till I'm 70. I don't want to do that. So that is our plan. We plan to save healthcare through entrepreneurial medicine. I've exited healthcare. I'm just running the business, and I no longer can do much innovation. I'm doing a little stem cell research, but just kind of on a limited basis, but we're looking for innovative practices. I found a guy that knows how to reduce hysterectomies by 30% with a very minor procedure, so women don't have that complication associated with that and the weight gain and diabetes that occurred with it. And we have other service lines that have a similar 20-to-1 healthcare savings that once we have a national footprint, we'll roll those out behind. We're starting to do little salvos in it now. So that's the story. I'd like to take questions if you have any.
Wow.
I have a question.
Yes.
So early on, when you said those conversions weren't happening at the pace in which you wanted them to in terms of people coming to the office, were they deciding not to have the surgery, or were they going somewhere else? What was the...
Yeah, great question. So what happens is that a big enemy to us is their family doctor that's tied into leaving stuff alone. This is a normal thing until something really bad happens, and then they do conventional medicine, which is send them to the hospital. So what happens, they'll come in and they'll get a consult, and they got some spots on their leg. And we know that if you have spots on your leg, you're going to progress at 4% per year till you get the hole. So it's really cheap to fix it now, because it will definitely happen if you live, So we'll see them, and we'll give some recommendations to them, and then they'll go to the doctor, and the doctor's like, oh, that's hogwash, just wear the compression stockings, and I wouldn't do it. They don't understand it, because most doctors don't know what we're doing. The market penetration is less than 1/3 of 1%. Okay, so the majority of people with this disease are treated with conventional methods, which is doing nothing. When you go to the store and you watch people walking out, you see people with the big giant legs, they've all got this disease. And until they get a hole in it, they're not really actively managed or
It's
told
not a
they
sense
have.
of urgency.
There's no sense of urgency. They put them on a diuretic to get the water out of them. They send them to the heart doctor. So it's very prevalent. Really, about 1.2% of people will get this condition. And we can actually pick it up years in advance. So it is common, and what the obstacles are, they're self-imposed by the office. They come up with a million reasons not to treat them, and then life gets in the way, and it becomes a non-urgency. So we focus on getting things done fast, removing all the friction. The insurance companies even kind of indirectly encourage doing nothing, because they have all these hurdles you have to go through, and it's easier not to do the hurdles than to do them. Great question. Yes?
Did you, at the moment where you realized you didn't have any process, you were saying, were you tempted to try to turn yourself into a process guy or jump into that? How'd that work out?
Yeah, that's a great question. There's a book called Predictable Success by Ian McCowan. And he really talked about this concept of between a processor, operator, a visionary, and a synergist. And his logic is it never changes. So I took the test, and mine was extreme. I had 0 processing score. Nobody else in our company did. And my visionary score was 100%, and that's called an arsonist. And for me to turn to a processor wouldn't happen. So I had to find the who's. I found people that could do it, and I don't talk to them. In fact, when we measured everybody, I found that the ones that irritated me most were processors, because they'd ask me a billion questions about stuff. I'm like, just do it, So I think turning yourself into someone you're not is maybe not. It's sort of like if you work on improving your weaknesses, you've got a bunch of good weaknesses. If you work on improving your strengths, there's other people that want to do that stuff.
Yeah.
entrepreneur. Yes.
So you had a period of struggle or entrepreneur where you're like, business is faltering or not accelerating like you'd like. Was there ever a point where you said, I just want to go spend more time in medicine, doing surgeries, being a physician, or where you say, I get this business stuff's exciting, I'm going to tackle this, I'm really excited about it. What was that kind of?
Yeah, so it happened when I was, I maybe had some hunger for it. Again, I had no entrepreneurial background, never thought about it. I just created myself a good job. And I thought, when I hired my first extra doctor and extra staff, our margins started going down. So my solution is, I gotta get more of that. And it got to the point where we lost money, and it was because I realized that I was only spending time being a doctor, and if I either gotta scale it back to where we were before, or figure out something different. And that's why I started studying business. And I spent a tremendous amount of time. I've got 7 coaches. I spend like hundreds of thousands of dollars a year attending meetings, getting coached. I read all the time, so I'm thinking about this all the time. And I didn't know there was all this stuff available. I never heard of EO. Didn't know it existed. Great question.
Nice.
Yes.
There's supposed to be a bunch of mechanisms in the Affordable Health Care Act to try to save costs, right? Clinically integrated systems and all that stuff. Is that just bunk? I mean,
They made the
not
trough of
happening?
healthcare easier to drink out of. Okay, so what happened is that in the effort to save costs, they simply created more stuff to make money. I mean, there's 51 medically unnecessary tests prior to 2011, now medically necessary screening tests, which are good, but a lot of times people don't know what to do with these. So if we picked up, let's say you go to your doctor and you're getting, anybody heard of the hemoglobin A1C test? That's the pre-diabetes one. All they're doing is watch it until you get diabetes, because they only know how to treat diabetes. If they tried to treat pre-diabetes, it's not covered by insurance. So they didn't really do that. They stated they were going to do it, but like a lot of bureaucratic things, there was fights amongst what should be done. So right now, preventive health care is kind of a myth. We get our vaccinations, you get your teeth cleaned, there's a few things, but in general, we know how to cure most diseases or prevent most diseases. Like genetic testing, for example, not covered. But let's say you could genetically test yourself and see what you're at risk for. I did genetic testing and I'm at risk for almost every cardiovascular gene I have, but I have no cancer genes and I have no neurocognitive decline genes. Those are the big 3. And cardiovascular disease is $864 billion we spent last year managing the disease. But now that I know that I have huge cardiovascular risk, I'm hyper-focused on that one thing. And I plan to live to 153, and the way, when I say set that goal, I had to figure out how to work backwards to make it happen. So I'm constantly working on reversing my cardiovascular age, because I'm not gonna get cancer, and I'm gonna maintain my brain. I have my hippocampus measured every year, and I'm at 99 percentile, I'm not gonna let it dip below that. So we can do things. Yes?
You mentioned you sort of changed your culture to be more metrics driven and to put in some incentives to be more focused on the business than what you had. How are you managing that through this massive growth where you're bringing on new offices every week and making sure that culture is aligned with that mindset?
So management, as we know it now, is based on a concept called Taylorism. And Frederick Taylor brought in modern management principles, first to Europe and Asia, and then to the United States in the 20s. And basically, you'd have your CEO and their CFO and CO underneath them, and then you have layers underneath them. And everybody's seen this model, and then finally get the bottom line. Before GM went bankrupt, they had 18 layers of management between the front line and the CEO. And we realized that we have too much management because we have to communicate. So there's got to be a mouthpiece, which might be the brains of the organization, to communicate with people on what to do. And this has been in place for a long time. But then we realized that things like technology, hiring people that had a brain, because this was really developed in the 20s when we were having people basically work like, Frederick Taylor called them oxen. You want to get your oxen to be building parts. You want to turn how many turns turn a screw to get it to go. So now we hire knowledge-based workers. They don't need so much instruction. They can be told what needs to be done versus what to do. And we have technology. So we have no managers in our company, not one. We have no regional managers, and we work in teams. We're a team of teams. And we manage our business with technology. So everybody knows how everybody else is doing. They know where we're making money at, which offices are making money, which service lines are. They know which person's doing good on the phones. They know which office is struggling. They know which office has a poor labor efficiency ratio. So we built a bunch of metrics and made it easy to read. We run our business with iPads, and that's how we do our electronic medical records, but we also use that for running our business technology. And we spend a lot of time educating people how to use the tools. And when people see where they're at, they want to do better. We did something like $1 per full-time equivalent per office. So imagine if you did $1 million, you had 100 people, you can figure out the number, $1 per FTE. And then, just doing your head real quick, imagine how much are your gross sales and divided by your number of people. The range is about 110,000 for a typical small business and 450,000 for Apple. Okay, that's the range. And tech companies usually a little lower because they have repeating revenue streams. That's the range. So we did it by office, and we did it by direct labor versus indirect, and we do it by the week. And what happened when we did that is the offices started sharing labor a lot more because they realized they were kind of over-labored, so they'd send somebody to another office to get them off their books and help the office out the needed staff. They also changed the way they thought about how many people they're going to hire, how they're going to have, instead of having multiple departments, maybe have people cross-trained. And our labor per FTE at our most efficient offices are 800,000, okay, versus 110,000 typical small business. So it's technology, eliminate managers, hire knowledge-based workers, show them what needs to be done versus what needs to happen. We have things like there's metrics that we follow, and one is the timing of, like we look at this conversion rate, and there's an office in Lexington, South Carolina, and it takes them about 3 months to get people in production because they always had this habit, and we're trying to encourage them to speed it up a little bit, but that's just what they do. And when I looked at the numbers, I realized, okay, their net promoter score is a 94. You know what a net promoter score is? That's if you have detractors or not. So that's world class. And their conversion rate is the highest in our company, but it takes them 3 months to do it. It's like, okay, we don't need to manage that. Whatever they're doing, it's working. They don't have to fix that. Another office, they get them in production right away, but maybe they're not doing as well. So we're learning from the individual offices how they're working. There's a book called Teaming, written this year. It's probably one of the best books I read this year, and it's about looking at how superorganisms work, like say ants or flocks of birds, and how do they communicate. You see the birds flying around in a pattern. What's happening is that the bird in the front is seeing signals from the birds that are scouts and going looking for food, and this is flying around. And all the other birds are only looking at 3 birds, one in front of them, this one, and this one, until they're on the outside. When they're on the outside, they're gonna go look somewhere else for food. And that's why you see those crazy patterns. They do little experiments. The bird flies out, looks for food, there's no food there, experiment's negative, they just go back. The experiment's positive, it gets the flock to fly over there. So what we're doing is trying to function as a superorganism so we can let people do, not medical experiments, but business experiments to see what's more efficient, how do we get our scores better for net promoter score. We're staying top class. Our goal is to be over 90% every single week. We get about 40 reviews a week, so for the Michigan offices. So we want to increase that all the time. We want to get people into production. We want to have good outcomes, and we want to have profit, and we want to have limited waste. So technology helps us communicate with the other offices. When we do buy the other offices, we have to hire ahead of production. So the newer offices lose money at first because if there's one doctor there where it increases sales by 500%, we gotta give them some help. And it takes usually a doctor about 6 months, so we're timing it right so that we have cash flow spinning off of these other places that can support the new ones. In about 3 to 6 months, they could be pop positive. That's a great question. Do you have a question?
What are your top 3 business books? You read so many, but what are your top 3 favorites?
That's a great question, but it depends on when you're reading them. So what happens is that, Vern Harder's book, Scaling Up, I've read it 4 times, and each time I've read it, he's gotten a little smarter. This year I love books that tell me things that I really don't know. So that was a great book for me. The 4 Disciplines of Execution by Franklin Covey.
Can you write them down?
Yes.
Everybody will take a photo.
Okay, so we talk about different aspects: strategy, execution, cash, people. So scaling up. He's got a new version coming up. There's one right now. It was out 2011. And that's about the meeting rhythm. One that would be a similar one that's called Traction. That's by Gino. So I've got my own jet, and Gino and I are in the same coaching group. So he flies with me to Chicago to see Dan Sullivan. And it's funny that I don't use his stuff, right? He's got the competitor. So traction or scaling up would be in terms of business, running your business. 4 disciplines of execution. That's what we, anybody hear of this WIG process, wildly important goals? And Marriott uses it a lot. If you go to Marriott and say, what's your WIG? They'll tell you what their wildly important goals. And for us, that's the term we use. We have a regular cadence of meetings to drive things. So we had an office, for example, in Warren, that had the lowest net promoter score in our group. Net promoter score is, basically it's how do people rate, would they reward you or not? And average is 50, and Apple would be a 70, or actually average 65. Doctor's office is usually in the 60s or 70s because there's more familiarity, and your cable company would be like a 2. So we were all at about 90%, and they were about 50, 60%. So what's going on? And we put their WIG of getting it over 90%. And they set their WIG, let's get over 90%. And they had to figure out why are they being rated poorly? Because they weren't respecting the customer's time. So all their lead measures were about getting them in the room, getting them on time. If they had to wait, make it clear, keep reminding them why they're waiting, and then get them home. And they got up to 90, and they've been that way ever since. You don't have to keep doing that WIG over and over again, because it just changed their behavior. So 4 disciplines of execution. For strategy, let me ask this a show of hands. How many people have a specific written strategy? It's tough, right? And sometimes it's even hard to say what exactly is strategy. So there's a book called The Inside Advantage. By Bob Bloom. And The Inside Advantage will walk you through how to build a strategy with your team. And the strategy is already kind of there. When you're growing a business, sometimes it's hard for you to communicate it and it can get lost. Like right now, part of our strategy is saving $10 billion a year. When I'm looking at service lines or businesses, if they're not saving healthcare, it's a no-go. It's just not going to happen. But it might be totally outside of our line of service or our expertise, but I'm considering it. I've read a lot of books on strategy. One's called Good Strategy, Bad Strategy. One's called The Lords of Strategy. I'd say after you get strategy really well defined, maybe look at those. Those are fantastic. Ownership thinking, I think, is better than a great being in business. So ownership thinking allows you to understand how. Who here has heard of The Great Game of Business with Jack Stack? Handful of people. It was written back in the 80s. There was a company in Missouri that was basically going out of business, turned into an ESOP. And Jack Stack was one of the engineers, figured out how to use engineering to teach the frontline workers how to make profit. And he's got processes for it. There's a class you can go to. Zingerman does classes on it. But the ownership thinking book is easier to understand. It's not as complex.
Who's the author? I'm looking it up and I don't see it.
Ownership thinking. His name starts with a P. His last name starts with a PH.
It doesn't come, well, it doesn't come up in Audible, so maybe it's not Audible.
Oh, it's probably written.
Okay.
I say those are good ones in terms of foundational things. I like reading. I mean, right now I'm reading a book on calculus, which is like stupid. I had to have it. We learned calculus. That's how we made ultrasounds like that with calculus. So, any other questions?
Do you still pay your people 50% more and have them work 20% less?
So our goal is by 2020 October. So we're about 25% more now. We have unlimited overtime off. And that's been like a little bit of a tough rollout because people don't quite understand it. Some people kind of maybe gained it a little bit, but it's working fine. And the idea would be about working less hours is that it's not like I want to take 10 weeks a year vacation, but we have slow times. So for example, in July 4th week, it's going to be slow. Probably not all of us should be here. And a lot of offices just closed or people went to half staffing that week. And the week before Christmas, it's going to slow down a lot. We know when people go back to school, we slow down, so we're kind of timing it like these are the time that we probably only need half of us. But in the middle of March, it's all hands on deck. Right? So we are going in that direction, and the time off is working. The pay we grew really fast, which hurt our profitability. We're catching back up now, so that's probably going to jump ahead a little bit in the future. And a lot of this 20 or 50% more income will come through raises and bonuses. The problem with bonus, and this inherent issue, is bonuses can drive bad behavior because they be gamed. The other thing is that if you're paying out a substantial amount of your income in bonus, it becomes something that people depend on and live on. And when there's hard times, they weren't really prepared. So I think it's dissatisfaction. Anymore, about 20% I think is risky for the typical worker. Some jobs it is 100% sales. We had production-based bonus, and when I ripped the Band-Aid off and got rid of them, it was interesting what happened. Our top sales lady never sold anything again. Okay, because she was making all this money in commission. She went and trained people how to sell. She started training. She said, I'm gonna be a trainer. She couldn't do that before because it would hurt her. But we had no idea she could train so well. Our top surgeon, he's a top producing surgeon, went from asshole to great guy. He started working on mentoring the new doctors. And now all he does still work and see patients. He's still very productive. He mostly goes around to offices and talks to the doctors that may be having some struggles. There's a joke in healthcare. We allowed to tell jokes at the Of course. Okay, so what is 12 inches long and hangs in front of an asshole? Stethoscope. So we have them. We have, don't record that. So that, yes.
What's your succession plan or exit strategy?
So I don't have an exit strategy. We're making our business prepared in case I get hit by a truck. We call it bus proof. So there is a plan in place should I die. But I don't plan to monetize or exit the business until I've saved at least $100 billion a year. So that's a little ways off. And I really don't have any desire to do it at all. I mean, we get poached by private equity all the time because we're wildly profitable, and we've been written up in several business magazines, and we're growing extremely fast. But we don't need money because we've figured out how to do this on cash flow. A little scary, but it works. Thank you very much.
Before you all get back to talking about this man is in our chapter. There are 12,000 of us around the world, each with stories maybe not quite this awesome, but with awesome stories and awesome journeys in different parts of this. And what I want us all to take back to everybody in your forum and everybody in the chapter this year is that this exists everywhere in EO. Not just here, not just in Chicago, not in Indianapolis. There are 12,000 of us around the world. If you don't leave the chapter, you're missing out on a huge part of the value of EO. And it's people like Chip, can I call you Chip? Yep. And every one of you who have these stories to share with other people. This is what EO is, so thank you.